Welcome to Common Unity. I'm Jason Fox.
And I'm Dr. Gabriel Lewis. And we are bringing the community together with a common unity.
Here goes. Jason's done it again. 3 weeks in a row. Gabriel, who have we got here today?
Okay, so we have a good friend called Bobby. So if you were sent an email from this guy, so his name's Bobby from IT, it definitely wouldn't match the picture. So I first was introduced to Bobby as a black belt at Jujitsu, and he's a pretty badass mover and groover. And thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Very much excited about having you on.
It's great. Actually, like seeing photos of you, because the jiu-jitsu classes that I do, there's night classes and day classes. And because you would turn up to some of the day classes and then people would do a group photo. And I think it's because it was about a year and a half, I think, maybe a year of me training there before I finally met you.
Yeah,
so
it's been this ghost in the night. Yeah. We've never been at the
So when I first saw you, I was like, oh, Gabriel, hey, I've heard about you, mate.
Smooth operator. Now you've heard about my jitsu. So it's pretty funny. So what kind of things get you excited?
I mean, what gets me excited? I mean, I really like learning things, obsessively so. I think maybe that's, if I looked at let's say two things you might be aware of that, that I do, one is cybersecurity or IT and the other one is jiu-jitsu. And I think both of those things I've had obsessive periods about them in my life. When I first started jiu-jitsu, the first 2 years I stopped drinking, all I did was trained, and I was a terrible employee and a terrible partner, and but it was just something that I was super passionate about.
It's the common jiu-jitsu journey.
Oh mate, it's the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, jiu-jitsu saved my life sort of thing. It's a common theme, right? And the same with computers, I've always had a passion for them, and I don't know, I guess it's I find difficult things or things that excite me and then just sort of latch onto them and go from there. And yeah, so I guess you could say my whole IT career is, I guess I'm quite passionate about it really. Yeah.
Be obsessed or be average, they say, right?
What's that?
Be obsessed or be average.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You're obviously not average because you're here. We brought you here for a reason, so I'm looking forward to finding out why.
So when the wife often says, why do they want to talk to you? Well, you're a man of mystery. Excellent. So what kind of got you into jiu-jitsu to begin with?
Oh, man, I did, as a kid, I loved ninja movies and stuff like that, and then I can remember, so before I did jiu-jitsu, I did Aikido for a couple of years, and I can even remember the video that made me want to do it. I saw a video of Steven Seagal and what do they call them, as a hakama?
Yep.
Doing his swirly stuff, and I was just mate, I want to do that, So I did Aikido for a couple of years, and then a friend of mine, Simon Scott, I saw him at a wedding. This is in 2008. And he said, I said, what have you been up to? I haven't seen you for a few years. And he said, I'm doing MMA. And I was just fuck off, mate. You're doing MMA, everyone wants to do UFC. And then it turned out he is actually quite a good, he was a really good MMA fighter and, went pro. But anyway, he told me to come along to his jiu-jitsu class. And I happened to be, the building that I worked in when I first got out of uni, I used to work for Vodafone. And the building that I worked in was in the same building that we had a jiu-jitsu gym. And I just happened to be walking past it one day and I saw Simon up in the cage, and then that was it. I went in for a class a few days later, and I remember them telling me, you have to do 10 classes before you can spar. So then from then I was like, right, that was a Tuesday. So Wednesday I was there in the morning, Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. And then I think I got to about the 6th class, and then they're like, the high belts. It doesn't
work like that.
Yeah, I was I just became obsessive, and then, I remember one of the high belts, they were picking out partners to do sparring, and then they just said, they didn't even ask how many classes, they just let me go, and then that was it. And I remember getting beaten up by a guy called Nick Siu, who was a little Chinese 60-kilo blue belt, tore me up, ruined my arms. I was 105 kilos at the time. And I was just mate, I need to learn whatever he knows. I need to know that as well.
Excellent.
And then and that was it really. Just became obsessed, and
One thing I was very impressed. Like you're a big guy, but you don't roll like a big guy. You use technique and not your size to kind of move on the mats, the tatami, and it's cool to see. But you can tell with the Aikido background and everything. And
well, I think it's like, it's funny because like people say, oh, you know, you're a big guy, but I don't think I've ever like saw myself as
being big,
as being a big person.
Yep.
So I've always thought of myself as kind of like probably smaller than what I appear like. And I mean, I don't know what that reveals about my psychology, but so, and especially, and the other thing as well, like when I'm rolling with people, especially here now, there's like a handful of you guys, you brown belts, you know, there's not many black belts around here, there's Philippe. And so generally speaking, like if I'm going to roll, especially with lower belts, and because it's been a lot of time that I've done jiu-jitsu, I've been, I guess, heavier than people. And it's like, oh, mate, like I don't want to crush people. No. Like I don't want to go on and like just tear people up because it's like nobody wants to train with you the next session. So like I often find that I kind of like temper my intensity to what the person.
So you're just tempering to me?
No, I'm certainly not tempering to you. I'm trying to keep up with you.
What he's doing is alphaing you.
Male posturing. Funny. Oh, how good.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I mean, like, and I prefer that sort of more technical role, you know.
Yeah.
Apart from like when I'm rolling with Philippe, our you know, the black belt.
Oh yeah.
Owns the gym, mate. I'm going like full tip with him and, you know, hanging on by my fingernails, you know. And then he's like that. He's almost just like humouring me because he's that much more better a fighter than me.
He's just a phenomenal.
Yeah, he's good. He's legit.
Oh, he definitely is. So, how did you get into IT?
Oh, mate.
And not just IT, cybersecurity. So, I'll tell you a little bit about backstory. I was like, just asked Bob this question. What about the black web? I've heard this dark web. Sorry, see, even I get it wrong. dark. And he just explained the whole basis to me really, really well. So I found it super interesting. But yeah, how did you get into IT?
I mean, like, I've always liked computers. Like, I've just, man, I remember. Okay, here's a story about when I was growing up. So my mum used to tell me when I was a kid, she used to prime me for like how I should talk to people, especially adults, when they say, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? So mum used to sit me down and she'd say, right, if somebody asks you what you want to do when you grow up, tell them you either want to be a jumbo jet pilot or a lawyer. And I didn't know what either of those two things were, and I used to just parrot it all the time. So like adults, you know, you're a 10-year-old, and they're like, what do you want to do when you get older? I'm like, I want to be a jumbo jet pilot. I'm like, no fucking idea what a jumbo jet is, you know. And then I remember one day my dad sat down, and I would have been, it was when I was Form 2. So what's that, like in 97? My dad sat down and he said, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a jumbo jet pilot. And he's like, just fuck whatever. Like, I've heard mum saying, just tell me what you want to do. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, because like my dad's a Sparky, or he was a Sparky, he's retired. My mum was an accounts clerk, you know, doing bookkeeping for a local company in Whakatane that sold cleaning chemicals. You know, like all the people in my family were like tradespeople, really. And so, I mean, I had no idea. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I like boogie boarding. I was like, maybe I could do that for a job. And then Dad said, well, you know, what else are you sort of interested in? And I said, well, I like computers. And he said, because I played with computers a lot as a kid. And he said, well, maybe you could, you know, pick that as a job. So then we sat down when I would have been 11 or 12. And we drew out a plan about how I could get a job, like just working in computers. So we looked at like, you know, around that time, I think Japan was quite big in sort of in terms of economy with, you know, the things that they sold and produced around the world. So we're like, hey, how about you could get a job in IT and work in Japan? So we're like, okay, I'm going to go to high school. I'm going to study Japanese. I'm going to do all the sciences, go to university, do like a computer degree. Not that my uncle had a science degree, but no one else in our family had gone and done tertiary education, or hadn't done university training. And then that was it, man. It just started from there. So it started from 11. I was like, right, my goal is to basically get through university and get a job in IT and go live in Japan, work in Japan.
Wow. So computers would have come a long way in that space.
It's changed a lot. Yeah, Pentium 100s. So that's like a 100 megahertz processor, and now they're like
terabytes.
Like, well, you know, like a processor is like a 3.2 gigahertz, and that's like multiples of 1,000 more, you know, and it's just, yeah, so much like faster, and like the amount of space that things have, and yeah.
It's like our phones, right? We used to have server rooms, and our phones are more powerful than the old server rooms.
Oh, mate. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Or like a digital watch, you know, like even just a little Casio watch has got more grunt than the computers that landed on the moon, you know. It's just, it's kind of crazy, really.
So you did end up going to Japan? That's part of the story?
I did go to Japan, but I didn't. I went there with my girlfriend at the time. She's now my wife. But we didn't. I mean, I tried. What is it? So I got out of uni, worked for Vodafone for about 4 years, and then decided to leave New Zealand. And so, yeah, me and my wife, we went to Japan, but we went and worked in a ski resort. And I tried really hard to just get like a snow shoveling job because we were just there to be ski bums. My wife worked on a front desk as like, she's a teacher, but she just worked on a front desk checking and stuff. And I was just going around saying how I'll dig holes like in the snow. I just want to like keep fit, like go snowboarding and that.
The guy that builds the snowmen out the front for the kids.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, like, that weirdo. And then they all found out about my IT background, and then I had like 2 jobs working in this town in Hokkaido, in a place called Niseko. Yeah, working, you know, doing IT stuff like trying to fix the computers and back-end stuff. But yeah, and then after that, yeah, then we moved to the UK, and we got back about a year and a half ago. So we're in the UK for about 10 years, and
excellent. So were you training in the UK, obviously with Jujitsu?
Yeah. So I like my Jujitsu. So yeah, I started off like in a gym. I started off with a guy called Douglas Santos. Don't know if you've heard him, yeah. So I trained with him for 2 years here in New Zealand before I left. And then, yeah, like I trained at 2 different gyms in London. So I trained for about 4 years with the Gracie Barra London Bridge. Mm-hmm. I got up to my brown belt there, and then I left that gym to go fight with the gym that I eventually got my black belt from, and that's Fight Zone under Marco Kanya. Mm-hmm. And, so it was, I mean, I did competitions and stuff over there. I used to compete quite a bit here in New Zealand as well, even in that short 2 years. It was probably the bulk of my competing, really.
Yeah.
Like kept training over in the UK and just like stuck at it, right? Like obstinately so. And then, you know, if you hang around long enough, you eventually get a black belt. So it's like,
it's true. It's
basically everybody's going to keep turning up. Just keep turning up, you know.
Can't get rid of him. Give him a belt and he might go.
It teaches a lot about consistency, though, eh?
Oh, for sure, man.
And just dedication, hard work. Yeah. Not everything's easy, you know. Like, and you will always get to your goal.
Yeah,
show up every day.
I want to hear about you. Like when did you start, and who have you trained with? Like, have you trained with Philippe this whole time?
Since I moved back to Tauranga, I've only trained with Felipe. Okay. So Jiu-Jitsu journey, I actually started Muay Thai. Yeah. Okay. When I went down to uni, started with Muay Thai, and then I went up to Auckland. I was training with Lolo Himuli.
Yeah, wow.
And I was training with him for a bit, and then when I went back down to Dunedin, I was training there, and had 2 really amazing trainers there in Muay Thai, and then went back up to Auckland, and I was going to train back with Lolo, but he had stopped training people for a period of time. He had about a year where he wasn't training so much. So I ended up training with Jason Suddy.
Yeah, okay, wow.
And so I was under Jason Suddy, and then I was flatting with somebody.
Was that in Pamua? No. Yeah. Is that ETK?
ETK.
Yeah, cool.
So respect all, fear none.
So,
awesome group of guys.
So,
awesome
Cooler in that then, I guess. Yeah, wow.
Know all of them.
Yeah.
And then so when I was working, when I was training there, one of my flatmates he used to do lots of boxing. He used to do Japanese jiu-jitsu, and he was like, mate, come along to Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's awesome. And so he knew I did the Muay Thai. So I went along to the Japanese jiu-jitsu just to entertain it, and happened to go there. It was awesome. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, wow. Next class had a gi, and I've done it ever since. So then I did Japanese jiu-jitsu for a good, I think it was 4 years at the time. And then when I moved to Sydney, once I graduated, I wanted a traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu in Sydney, but they only had bastardized versions of Japanese jiu-jitsu because I did a very traditional form. So then I was like, oh, well, I might as well do something that's going to complement Japanese jiu-jitsu. So I rocked up at Gracie Baja in Sydney.
Wait, like everywhere.
Another
There's a Gracie Baja everywhere. And then so did that to complement my Japanese jiu-jitsu and still do it. So and then moved back to New Zealand and been with Felipe since. So but I still am a part of Japanese jiu-jitsu, but I don't, because it's in Auckland, the dojo, I don't practice it. And I was meant to open up a dojo here, but I'm just got too much on my plate. So I want to spread yourself too thin.
So the goal still is to get the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu still.
Oh, you're not too far off, mate.
Yeah, no, not too far off. Just turn up, keep turning up.
Do you go brown then black, or is there something in between?
Yeah, brown and black.
So you're close. So just a couple more weeks of standing around there, and they'll give you.
Just try. I'll try and twist Felipe's arm, see if he'll give it to me. Good luck.
That's kind of the sport, isn't it?
Good luck trying to catch his arm.
Good luck with that.
No, it's seriously something really cool just about showing up and just you learn a lot about yourself in training. It's like hard. It's always hard, but I've always had this thing where I've really enjoyed and thoroughly got excited the more difficult the training session is. Like it's like that love-hate relationship. Oh, that sucks, but more.
I've always remembered I've never been to a session, I can safely say I've never been to a jiu-jitsu session where I thought, I wish I didn't go to that.
Yeah.
So like all those nights, like a night like tonight where it's kind of cold and wet outside and you think, I don't want to go because I'd rather just sit on my bum. But then you'd kick yourself because you know that if you go, you're going to give like a good time.
Yeah.
And
you don't always have to go like 120% intensity. You can actually focus on so many different things. And I was talking to one of the white belts as well. The good thing about jiu-jitsu is that they're like, oh man, you know so much. And it's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And the pockets are so deep in so many different aspects. So it's kind of never ending learning. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard people have different approaches to this. I've seen, because I think a white belt was asking me the other day about how many moves you know. And I see there's two different types of people in jiu-jitsu, and you see some of these people, they just have massive libraries of moves, and they develop them well before they're black belt, and they just know lots of different things. Maybe they couldn't pull it off like full tilt in a fight, but they know enough that if you give them position, they'll submit you with it. They know lots. And then there's other people that have like a limited dictionary of attacks or things, but they can do them really well. And I'm definitely of the latter group. I don't have a massive dictionary of moves, but the ones that I do know, I've just done them so many times, Yeah. They're if somebody takes me back in a certain position, I'm like, it's not that bad because I've been here a million times before.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. Pardon?
I said, you know your way out of it.
Yeah.
The fundamentals, you know them well. And
it's like you get to a point you're not even thinking, when you're doing these things. It's like, it can be quite bad, but then I'll start thinking about my job or something. When someone's trying to choke me and, I'm almost passing out, but then because it just becomes you just what is it
automatic.
It's like automatic, right? Like muscle memory.
Subconscious.
Yeah.
I hope one day I can get to that with my golf.
Golf's one of those sports that even Tiger Woods doesn't get there.
Do you play much golf?
Not well.
Oh, really?
I play, but not well.
Yeah. Do you guys still play in winter and that, I guess, or?
Yeah, I actually got called up to play today, but all the courses are pretty well closed with the rain. But I'll play on Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I haven't been playing a lot because I've been trying to focus on my business and the podcast has taken a bit of our time and stuff. But there was a time I was playing 3 or 4 days a week,
Oh, wow.
I was just out there doing
18 or 9? Or?
9 for most of them, but generally 118 a week.
Yeah, wow.
But, in summer you can rock up there at 3 or 4 and wander around and be home by 6 still, and with the daylight and stuff, it's a bit easier to get around. And it's calming, because I'm in finance and stuff, and it's very hard not to take on people's stresses all day long.
Yeah.
Gabs has got the same thing with what he does. Everyone unloads on you. It's, for me, often it's my problem that their business is failing, and I'm their only way out of it. and often you can't help them because their business is failing, so you can't lend them money. You know, you get into these situations and it's hard not to take that pressure on. But when I'm on the golf course, I can put on my AirPods, listen to a podcast or a book, just go for a wander often on my own and just hit some balls, and it's very calming out there in the trees. And
You'll listen to a book while you're playing?
yeah, just go for if I'm on my own.
Yeah,
if I can just get out on my own. And
no, when you're out with your mates, you're like, no, mate, I'm listening to a podcast.
no,
Common unity. It's great. You should listen to it.
That's the real reason I love golf, because I just love heckling mates and being heckled by mates. So we just get out there and abuse each other for like 2 hours.
I'm not sure if it's more serenity or scary. But that's the good thing about it. It's so important to have like that kind of avenue where you're just got something to unload your day. Like jujitsu, golf, life, communication, you know, it's somewhere where it's actually positive rather than kind of, oh yeah, and we've all been there, I just need a beer or I need a drink, but it's always good to have something that's really positive that you can offload. Yeah.
I honestly think, I've talked to my workmates about this. I don't know if it's an addiction to like physical activity or like undiagnosed depression, because if I don't do like some sort of physical work, man, I get to like, so I can just cope with going without over a weekend, not doing anything. And then Monday I'm like, I've got to do something. And then I find like, it's like the color out of the world just kind of drains away. Like I can't feel, my sense of touch is like dulled, like hearing is like not as well. And it's just like, you know, but then when you do like that physical activity, go to jiu-jitsu and get beaten up, you know, it's like
it's those endorphins that your body desperately needs. So that's why moving the body is so important. So if somebody is dealing with any types of depression or anything, the biggest challenge, like it's hard to feel good if you're not moving the body. Just even if it's like go for a walk down to the street, like have it so it's not this massive, huge goal, but just getting the body moving. Like, yeah.
I think it's also amplified too when you're actually fit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you're doing it all the time, you really notice the difference of when you haven't done something. Whereas if you just hadn't done anything for like weeks and weeks and weeks, that becomes the normal as to how you feel, and you think you're feeling fine. You don't realise the difference of, you know, when you change your diet and you're like, why have I got so much energy all of a sudden? Those shifts, because you're so fit with the fitness you're doing, you do notice when you've done nothing and your body starts, you know, really trying to lag on you.
It's definitely the case. So
I mean, like I understand, like, you know, you hear of some people that live like an intellectual life where, you know, they might be working in a university or they do things where they're just like solely using their brain power to do, you know, think about difficult problems, like take like a scientist or whatever. But, you know, and like there might be some people like that kind of reject doing any sort of physical activity in sport. And I just can't understand that. I can't get my head around it. You know, it's almost like maybe they just don't know what they're missing out on, or I don't know.
And some sort of movement's required for everybody. They're just like, oh, no, I've never done it, so I don't enjoy it. But even if it's a walk, you know, it doesn't have to be much. Just moving the body, getting some movement throughout the body makes a huge of difference. But yeah, they would just be missing out. They just wouldn't be aware. Yeah. It's pretty cool though.
So you come back to New Zealand. You're obviously in IT. Yeah. What are you doing for a career here? Yeah. Started a company for yourself, have you?
Yeah. So I guess like the real quick overview is, I went to uni. I did a science degree, majoring in computer science, and then worked at Vodafone in their like networking team for like 4 years. And then this is another thing. Like, so within my industry, like within our kind of, I guess the networking space, split into 3 different fields. There's like networking, which is like computers talking to each other. There's security, which is like stopping computers from talking to each other. And then there's voice, which is like, you know, your Cisco IP phones and everything. So within my industry, you know, like if I meet up with other engineers, they go, what do you work in? I say, I work in security. And then I learnt that I had to like, when I talk to like lay people, like not to say that, because I used to say to people, they'd say, what do you work in? I go, I work in security. I'm like, oh, you're a bouncer. I'm like, it's a little bit different. Like in a way, I guess. like in a way, I guess I am. You know,
I could be in security. I am a black belt in jujitsu.
Big funny ears and everything. Yeah, but like, so when I was there, like I guess, I was in what was called like the IP transport team, and we looked after all those 3 different things. Looked after voice, security, and network interconnectivity. And I guess like networking, I guess you could describe as, because when I say like I'm a network engineer, a lot of people might not understand what that is, and that's basically like if you've got more than one computer that needs to talk to each other, it goes over a computer network, and then all a security device does is inspects the traffic that goes between those different like end devices. And so yeah, when I was at Vodafone, I started off as kind of broad, and then when I went to the UK, for some reason, they looked at my CV, saw that I'd worked with firewalls, and they're like, right, you're going to be a security engineer. So for my whole time in the UK, I was just a security engineer, just working purely on firewalls and proxies and these things. And then towards the end of my time, I think from about, it was like 2017, I got a job for a company called Palo Alto Networks. And so they're an American firm that makes firewalls and among other things. And then, so when we decided to leave the UK, we left at the end of 2020. We just basically handed in my notice there. I was working for the European team for Palo Alto Networks, and then I came back here, spoke to the Asia Pacific team, and then just managed to get a job for the same company, but within a different, like the APAC region team.
Wow.
And then just got a job. Basically, just carried on doing that. So I started off as a network engineer. I'm holding out my hands like a foot apart. So I started as a network engineer, then I became a security engineer, and now I'm only a security engineer for one particular vendor. So I only work on, it's quite niche, I only work on one specific product or one vendor, So if it's somebody else's equipment, like it's not my problem, Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it's about getting detailed and specific and really knowing that product inside and out.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how you can get funneled into these sort of things.
Was it by choice or?
It wasn't by choice. No. Like I remember one of my mates, a guy that I worked with back in the day. I said, "Oh, what's your end goal?" And he's like, "Oh, bro, work in security for banks. That's the end goal, because that's where the money is." And I just thought, like, I have no interest in that at all. But like, that's what I do now. Like that's what happened. Like I just worked in the UK. Like I worked for, like financial institutions or, like asset managers or like, what is it? What do you call them? Investment banks, that sort of thing. And then, eventually just became so niche that now I only work on one particular product. So, So it's kind of cool. At least I get to go deep on
what
a particular thing. Yeah.
And do you enjoy it?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I just love, like, just put me in a cupboard, let me, like, get on with my work. I'm happy as Larry, Like, give me, like, a difficult problem that I can just spend hours, like, figuring out. Nobody talk to me. Don't invite me to any meetings and just, let me crack on. And I love it. I love playing with bits of code and,
And I suppose when you say you end up with the banks, like there's not really any security that's more important than banks. Banks or finance, like they have everyone's IDs, everything. So it's very important that that's held secure. So the average company, you're not going to find that higher role.
Well, I mean, it's interesting though. You'd say that, Like you'd think that the banks are the most important. The banks are the ones that have got the most amount of money. So I guess they can afford to, hire. I guess they can have the pick of the bunch, right? Because as part of labour forces, they can just pay more. Whereas, like, if you say that, they hold people's information, but so do big, like, retail outfits. So, like, farmers or in the UK, like John Lewis, they're almost like banks because they contain all this payment information for people. So, like, if you were trying to, if I was a hacker, I didn't even know if I'd bother trying to, like, hack a big bank. I think I'd go for, like, a retail outfit that I know that there's, like, a lot of stuff, good information that I could pinch. They probably don't have the money to fund having like decent equipment. I mean, look at like the problems that we had with ransomware with, what do you call it, the health organization, Waikato DHP.
Well, we were affected by that.
You were affected by that, weren't you? You were telling me about that with your...
one of Maddox's surgeries just got mistaken, just lost. We were waiting for the call and it was expecting a surgery like on the Wednesday, and we normally get called up the day before. Just nothing. Yeah, so they had no record of it, and this was happening everywhere in Waikato. So basically what happened was the hackers got in and basically wiped the whole system, was holding it ransom. So yeah, it was pretty bad. It was very bad.
It's horrible, right? Because then it starts really affecting people. I mean, I know like our salespeople were after that, they were sort of caught in a lot of the DHPs about saying, hey, you guys have had these lax security controls. You're not applying the amount of money that you need to get your sort of, or like even the attention to secure your systems. But I mean, like that, I mean, I don't know exactly what the cause of that. So what happened there is you have like, it was a ransomware attack, right? Where some software got in, it locks up a system, and then it locks up a system and encrypts it, and the only way you can get your information back is by paying somebody to give you a decryption key. And so if it's anything like what happened in the UK with the NHS ransomware attacks, I actually don't even know if a lot of those were targeted. Like some of those can actually be attributed to like what you'd call like shrapnel, because you've got like these different, I guess these like different layers of like bad guys, or no, I shouldn't say bad guys because one person's bad guy could be someone's hero, right? There's different people that are like trying to infiltrate systems. And like, you know, let's say you started at the bottom, you've got a guy living in Mount Maunganui who's disgruntled with the world and he's trying to hack into his neighbours' accounts or trying to hack into local schools or local businesses, I don't know, like just trying things out. And then you move up and you might have like organised crime. So like in Russia, it's well known that you've got gangs that work in conjunction with the government to sort of break in and steal money and do these sort of things. And then like above those sort of gangs, you've got like nation state sponsored hackers. So like America has their own team of like offensive hackers, and you know, it's just part of normal, I guess, spycraft trying to collect information on your, you know, other like peer states and that. And so I guess like, so this is, I almost lost my train of thought. I've got it now. So a lot of these tools that get developed for like these nation state actors, and I mean like these are, you know, there's a lot of money that goes into developing these tools, trying to find like 0-day vulnerabilities that they can use to make attacks. They put all this money into it, they develop these tools, and then they use them to either attack each other, to do something, to steal some information, or like try to disrupt something. But sometimes those tools, and there's some well-documented cases of those tools being leaked, and so that would be the shrapnel, right? Or like, let's say, for instance, North Korea. One of their ways, one of the revenue streams of making money is training up hackers and then getting them and going and stealing information from banks. And these are like well-documented cases of going and trying to like doing phishing campaigns to redirect international payments, or, you know, helping to fund gangs to make ATMs, spit money out, and then, you know, for people to come along and collect it. And so when they're creating these things, so like let's say North Korea develops some sort of ransomware attack, or what happens when, you know, it's one thing for a company or someone, not a company, for their hackers to use those to attack another country. What happens if that goes loose? And I think that's what was that was the case with what happened with some of the ransomware attacks with the NHS, is that this is just stray code that got out there and made itself onto a vulnerable system, got a foothold, traverse the network, and then that's it. Suddenly, like, heart monitors don't work, scanning machines, you know, or the stuff that's in operating theatres. And so, I mean, this is a trend that, well, I guess we're seeing in our industry, that the more that these big countries are pumping money into this and developing these offensive tools, you're starting to see the shrapnel of that, you know. And so, like, it isn't always like an intended effect to have, like, you know, as in your case, like, I wouldn't have thought, I can't see the reason why they would. Some attackers from North Korea would be like, why, you know, we're going to attack the Waikato DHB, you know, because I do know, like, some, you know, there was a case of, like, I think it was like Colorado. Is Colorado a city? Or yeah, it's a city, right?
Yeah.
No, it's a state, we're in America.
Yeah.
There was a city there where, like, they basically paid these ransomware attackers because it was like, it was going to cost them like $1 million or whatever to recover all their encrypted files, or like recover from backups. Or you pay $200,000 and you get an decryption key, and you carry on. And so, like, I don't think the Waikato DHB would have the kind of money that these people, these attackers would have, you know, asked for. So, yeah. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, really. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, like, day-to-day people kind of get caught up in unknowingly. And I mean, like, you think about the ransomware attacks, I know, like, it sounds like it could be directed, but, like, let's say this code goes out, and in your code you might say, once this gets onto someone's system, display this message, hey, you know, give us this many Bitcoin, put it in this account. Once that goes out and you've put that on the internet, or it's just made its way out and it's creeping along different computers. You have no control over that, and you're just lucky that somebody's system was compromised, and they suddenly get in touch with you to
pay you.
try and pay you and decrypt.
So obviously the average small business person couldn't afford, can't afford you. What's some things they can do? You can't afford me. What's some things you can do to really help them out? Like to help as a small business, to help your own cybersecurity?
Yeah, so because we talked about this in the gym the other day. I mean, before I talk about what you could do, I went to a conference once, and this guy we were talking about the stats of how people get hacked. Because the normal idea of someone, if, a layperson might think somebody's website or business getting hacked, it's some dude sitting on the end of a computer, tapping away, trying to hack in. Well, that's just not the case. First of all, a lot of this stuff is automated. And I'll give you an example of how I've seen that even on my system in the UK. Someone was trying to hack me, and you could see it going on for days. But so there's that first thing. There's not a person sitting on the end of a computer just trying to hack into your system. First of all, it's automated. You run scripts that go and do these things. But then the other thing is even that's difficult. An even easier way to get people is by doing phishing campaigns. And the stats that came back, this was years ago. This was about 5 years ago. It was something like 95% or 98% of all attacks, infiltrations, are done via phishing campaigns.
So can you explain the phishing campaigns a little bit more?
Yeah, so a phishing campaign is I send you an email pretending to be someone I'm not, and there's a link in there that you click on. It'll either download some software or it'll take you to a website or open up some sort of backdoor into your system. And so for regular punters, not even if you're a business owner, if you're a normal person, whether you're a business owner or just a private user, not clicking, being able to discern whether or not an email is a phishing email or not is quite a powerful thing.
I get one all the time. Excuse me. Yeah. I get one all the time, and I work for Credit One, or a broker under Credit One for finance, and Michael is the owner of it in Australia. And I get an email probably every 2 or 3 months going, "Hey Jason, it's Michael here. I'm just about to go into a meeting, but it's urgent. Can you, I need to jump on a Zoom call with you. Can you click the link?" And it's always, I've never spoken to him on the phone or anything, so no, it's junk. I've only ever seen him in person at Christmas dues.
And and it has your name in it as well.
Yeah, they attack me saying, "Jason, it's Michael here," with his last name and everything, and click the link, and then you look at the email address and it's 011114321@gmail.com. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
But it's all that easy, right? You're in a bit of a hurry. You don't actually realise what you're doing. You click on it that's cool. I don't normally hear from him. And, you click on something. Or maybe you're lower in the company and, you're in admin stuff. And the boss is asking me for something, and you click on it. And then it's into you, isn't it?
Oh, mate, I got a mate who owns a building company in the UK, and he said that one of his mates, that's how they got done. I think they'd hijacked... someone must have clicked on a phishing link, I think, within the business. They got a hold of this. I think she was in accounts, a woman in accounts. They got a hold of her email account. They started emailing the managing director saying, "Hey, we've got to quickly do this bank transfer. Can you authorize this or whatever, or quickly do it, or tell someone else to do it? 60,000 euros, that's it, it's gone, Yep. So it's it's that ability to try and discern that is, because that's the bulk of where people get ripped off really is from phishing emails. But then the other thing I was talking to you about was keeping all your system update, your system, your phones, your computers and that, just making sure they're updated. Because I was talking before about what a these 0-day vulnerabilities. So a 0-day vulnerability is the amount of days that a company has known about a vulnerable part of their system. So 0 days is in they don't know. So let's say, I don't know, there's some sort of vulnerability on the New Zealand Bank, BNZ, their website, or maybe their app. Maybe there's some sort of vulnerability that I can use to gain access to other people's details. And so, so if you now I'm going around in circles. So let's say BNZ's got an app, right? I've created an app and there's a vulnerability in it, and there's a vulnerability with it, and the thing to fix it really is just the company creates an update for it. So if you go ahead and just update your app, that's it. You can solve that problem from there. But if you're using outdated software,
don't solve that issue.
Yeah, that solves that issue, right? Like then people have got an in. So for instance, with the DHB attacks, they're just like really old computers that are super outdated and they're just not updated. And so like today you could go and download a bit of software where you can go and attack people like that. You can run like in a lab, simulate attacks and actually, break into people's old outdated systems. Like where there's well documented sort of vulnerabilities for like Windows 95 systems or Windows XP systems.
And then basically those systems will just target those.
Oh yeah.
Those programs, and whoever's got an open window, it's an easy target.
So you just write a script and you'd have it like scour the internet and just look for internet facing Windows XP devices, because I know there's like this massive list of vulnerabilities for that. And so the first thing you do is I shouldn't use Windows XP, like an old system, or I should like keep things updated. So every now and then you'll hear from Apple, there was one, I don't know if it was earlier this year, saying everyone should update their Apple systems because there's a well-known vulnerability for that. And so the simple fix to get around that vulnerability and protect yourself is just to update your systems. So like, for instance, every month I'll go around because I've got about 30 different devices on my home network. I'll update every single one of them, make sure everyone's phones are updated, everyone's computers, all the little computers that I have in my house, just all of them are updated. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. It's just so simple things. Just keep the updates going, and then yeah.
What about the likes of Norton and VPNs and stuff like that? Because everyone thinks they need a virus tracker and a scanner, and every time that I've ever had something like that on my computer, it just seems to bog it down and the computer never works properly.
Yeah, I've had that same thing again. We had a local company, we had Apple, and they're like, oh, you need to get some virus software, and then basically got the virus software and completely... I swear they gave it a virus.
It just clogs up the system. Yeah. So do they offer as much protection as everyone makes out, or is it just don't click on the phishing thing, you should be fine?
Well, it's like, I don't have Windows machines, I have Macs at home. And if you think about it, like the broad spectrum, so like if you're an attacker, you're going to stay away from like the more secure devices where you're going to develop tools for like the low-hanging fruit. So you're going to go for the things like what computers do most people have? They have Windows computers. So that's the first thing. Like, is popular, I guess, is amongst people that you have Macs. Macs are like a real, like they don't have the sort of market capitalization as Windows systems.
Well, they're outside of most people's price point.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's kind of like, if there's like 10%, I don't know what the rates are. If there's 10% of computers in the world are Mac and like 90% of home users are Windows, well, like, I'm not going to waste my time like working with a Mac, right? So that's the first thing. Even though I do know like you can get software for Macs, so like staying away, I guess, from those, which isn't not everybody can do. But like yes, I never have antivirus software like on my computers at home. I just make sure that they're updated like crazy, because then I guess I don't know. Like you could, if you were cynical, you could say like virus protection companies are finding all these like virus definitions, but it's like, I don't know, maybe they're just like making them up, or like maybe they're the ones making the viruses. I don't know,
Yeah, it seems, because I've got a Norton on this at the moment, because being in finance, for my insurance to be cheaper, I have to have some software on my computer. And, it runs a scan every now and again. It's like, we found 300 threats. It's like, really? So I've never had any issues with my computer. If anything, I downloaded this Norton, now it's slower, and
Yeah,
I've never trusted them.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like I've never had antivirus, software on my computers. But the other thing is like, I've always had a firewall at home, because like, if you're installing antivirus software, it's on a single host, and you've got to do it for all the different computers you have. Whereas I've got a firewall at home, but I guess the average user doesn't have that. But that like protects my entire network.
You're not the average. dad at home either.
Average, yeah. I'm not the average punter, yeah.
Bob from IT. So the wife's quite lucky.
Yeah, I don't know if she'd say that, but
my wife's my IT person.
really?
She's the IT person. If it's anything needs updating or this or hey, can you get into this system? Can you get this on the TV? It's here.
Jokes.
It's definitely me at home.
I'm not IT. Yeah. But I find it interesting.
I just really think that like making sure that everything's updated, and like a bit of awareness. Yeah, because I hate antivirus software, like it's just another thing that you have to maintain, and it's like, yeah, I mean, the company probably wouldn't like me saying that because I guess like most corporate, I had to do a cybersecurity training for one of my customers today, and they're like, yeah, make sure that you got your antivirus software and all that sort of thing, and it's, I don't know, there's like a trade-off, right, in terms of like how secure you make yourself and how cumbersome that, like how troublesome it is to maintain that protection. Yeah. But I think it's just really keeping everything updated.
Yep.
It's the biggest thing, really.
Yeah, it's excellent. So is there anything that you kind of work on personally? You say you do a lot with podcasts and listen to a lot, and what's some things you're navigating at the moment?
Or
learning lots about?
Yeah, like I just had a new customer for my work. So like I found like the last month, all I've done is like this customer that I got, it was so like if you look at the amount of equipment that I have to maintain in my business, my sort of skill set, like what our company provides is like this big, and I probably know maybe like half of it. And I had a customer where I really didn't know what I was doing, but then also you've been presented to this customer, and I know they're not going to listen to this podcast, so I'm lucky. But like I literally had no idea what I was doing, and so for 3 weeks it's just like late nights sitting down looking at how the technology works, looking at like white papers on architecture, or like, and just going through like these manuals, trying to figure out how this stuff works so that you can be an authority. So I go through little periods like that with my job where like I'm just like literally don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just like doing boring, or I'm just doing work stuff. But then outside of it, like I've been trying to get a bit of time. When I was in the UK, I bought some cool bits of equipment. I bought it's called a USB Rubber Ducky and a Wi-Fi Pineapple. And a USB Rubber Ducky is like, it looks like a USB stick, but you can program it to like do all these keystrokes. So literally you plug this thing in, the computer recognizes it as like a keyboard, and then it just starts typing away. So you can use it to like basically put like backdoors on people's computers. And obviously I'm not a hacker, so
oh wow,
but it's so cool though. Like,
what's this USB hanging out on my computer?
That's why you shouldn't pick up USBs off the street and just plug them in,
because they could be talking something else.
Oh,
hey,
mate.
Go through, get this.
So there was a thing in was it like the CIA in the States? I think it was like in 2008 or 9, where basically these hackers went around, just dumped all these USB Rubber Duckies on their like in the car park and in the lobby, and people were just picking them up and plugging them in, and it gave them a backdoor. I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was the Iranians or the North Koreans, but basically the CIA got hacked.
They'd be like, yay, free.
Yeah, like free USB sticks.
Yeah.
So then straight away afterwards, they basically went around with the ID department and were sticking glue into all the USB slots around the business. And this is why a lot of companies, they actually disable the USB ports for this exact reason. Because it wouldn't be that hard to just chuck a USB stick in your computer, as long as you're logged in, right? I'd be like, oh, Hobro, can you just log into I could come into your business and go, oh, I've been set by corporate to take a look at your computer. I'm doing some updates. Bring an iPad in with like a fake email. I go, oh, see, because for some reason people look at iPad and think this dude's legit. And I just need to plug this in because I'm going to get some information. Whack it in. Gets like a backdoor entry, creates like a backdoor to your computer at home. You've got reverse shell access where you go.
And do you need to leave that USB in, or can you take it out?
No, you can take it out, because all it's doing, all these USB Rubber Duckies are doing, it's just like a keyboard. So you know how like you plug a keyboard into a computer.
Yeah.
It's called like a human interface device. The computer just sees it. It doesn't. You don't have to install any drivers, do anything special. You plug any keyboard into any computer, generally it just works, right? And so these USB Rubber Duckies are exactly the same thing. So when you plug it in, all it thinks that you're doing is just plugging a keyboard in. But then there's a delay on it. You can pre-configure all your scripts, and then it'll just be like, it's like you're typing it away, but it'll do like 1,000 words per minute. So you can get it to do some really complex things. So that's one thing I'm playing with at the moment, which I'm quite.
I'm feeling more IT clued up since having this conversation with you already.
It's one of these things, we watch all these movies and stuff, and then it happens in real life a couple of years later. It feels like I've been seeing that happen in movies for the last 15 years, but now it's like something that we need to worry about.
Yeah. You know? So it's a legit thing, Because a lot of people, it's like, as I said before, with the big hacks that go on, it's like phishing emails. So it's emails, right? Emails with malicious links. And then the other one is like social engineering. So if I was going to try and hack the New Zealand bank, I want to go into the head office. This is why they're so strict about, controlling who comes and goes, and you can't tailgate people. You've got to have your ID. If I could get in with someone, get next to somebody who's on a computer screen that's open, just slot that in. Oh, mate.
Well, when you think about it, so I assume that's why, say, for example, Trump stopped Huawei, their phones coming in.
Oh, so mate, I could tell you lots about them.
I was just about to say, say, for example, if a company opened up, had a USB and in a packet, you assumed it was safe. If they were compromised from their end, they've technically got access to everybody's computer if they so much wanted to.
The thing with Huawei, man, so I read a really interesting paper these Norwegians put out a few years ago. It was from some Norwegian university, but they basically looked at from a real low level all the way up to a high level, basically why you shouldn't have Huawei in your country, and they looked at it from a real. They analyse it from, I don't really know how to explain it non-technically, but they looked at it from a data link level up to, they looked at how CPUs work and how all the different components in a computer work and all the different software that you have and how you could hide, backdoors at those different levels. And so with Huawei, so if people don't know, so I think most people would associate them with cell phones.
Yes.
They're telecommunications companies. So they make I don't know if they have firewalls, but they definitely got networking infrastructure. And so even when I worked at Vodafone back in the day, they took over iHug, they started buying Huawei equipment, their back-end switches and things. And why do they go with them? Because they're cheap.
Affordable.
It's cheap. They're 40% the price of Cisco, Juniper equipment. Cisco and Juniper are American companies that make switches and networking infrastructure. So it's just cheap, right? So they were going into these African countries. They were going into because I guess how the different states in America are run. You have states that look after and make decisions about their sort of security infrastructure. Sorry, not security infrastructure. Their telecommunications infrastructure and how they spend their money. So they'd go court these different states and be well, you could buy Cisco equipment, or you could buy this for 40% of the cost. So people are just if they don't have much money, you just go and do it. And then I think they've got people think that they have quite close ties to the CCP. The Communist Party in China. And so even if they weren't actively, using these backdoors to establish a foothold in these countries, they could. And this is what this paper was talking about, demonstrating that all these different levels there. There's just no way you could get around it. If they've got their physical equipment in the back end, there's just no way that you could
stop it.
You could stop it, right? And there's no way that you could detect it. And so all it would take, they were saying and this is a real far-fetched example, but let's say if China was to attack a country that had this equipment in the back end, they don't need to get in and do some crazy attack. All they need to do is do a kill switch and just literally turn everything off. And then you disrupt communications. If you have a land invasion, it's the first point of attack. I mean, you look at what's happening in Ukraine and how Russia, before everything kicked off. I heard about Russia and Ukraine. I heard about that before the news. It was on my Twitter feeds because I just followed cybersecurity people on Twitter, and they were talking about how the cybersecurity attacks really ramped up before the land invasion occurred. And that'll be something you'll see lots more in the future. But so Huawei, mate, now.
It makes sense, and technically you'd be in a lot of trouble. You can think hypothetically, wow, but It's got lots of people doing not very nice things in business or not very ethical things in business. So it's very easily done. But if it's done for national security, lots of things are done for nation security. Yeah.
Because same in the UK, they don't let, I think they've created it, they passed a law a few years ago banning Huawei for like key infrastructure and telecommunications, because it's just like it just creates like a, what's the word? It's like just a massive risk, with the
unknown.
Yeah, it's just like unknown, right? That these guys could have a backdoor, and
it's basically like a spastic white belt.
Basically, pretty much. Yeah, dangerous. Yeah, unknown. Yeah.
If you actually want to watch a movie, a TV show, Devils, it's fantastic. It's on Neon. Season 2 goes quite into this COVID yarn and everything, and there's a battle that goes on to ensure that all the big venture capitalists are buying out all the telecommunication companies before China are. So they're like shorting stocks and stuff to ensure the security of their nation for exactly that reason.
Mate, like, because they were sending, like, the Chinese were having, because you got to remember, like, no, even before I go into that, so like the Chinese were sending people over to Silicon Valley to fund a lot of these like early stage investments, because as part of the, I think when you're like an early stage investor or whatever, if you put up enough money, you get to look at the prototypes and the technology.
They're using the prototypes to go through and make their
Look at their technology, and then they just take it back to their own version of Silicon Valley. Because the thing with China, there's like, you got to remember, they see like, so when we think of like security of a state, we think of like people coming in and, like you trying to like come in with guns and tanks, and, that's why you have missile defense and that as well. But part of their sort of way that they think, the Chinese government, is that part of national security is economic security. So this is why like it's so I guess this is why there's so much like intellectual property theft that's sponsored by the Chinese government, because they see like the economic progress is like national security as well. It's not just about being able to protect your borders, it's about like having a strong economy. And so this is why they were sending, as you say, like, you're talking about these guys coming in and trying to steal intellectual property via like VC funding, and
Well, it's even in law with regards to big international companies, Chinese international companies, they've technically got to think about the nation's security and best interest with all their business modalities. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's done.
And I guess like I should be like temper my language when I say the Chinese. What I'm talking about is like the Chinese government, right? Because, like I read a really good, I don't know if you guys ever read like Tony Alexander. I don't know, like he does a...
every week they come through.
Yeah, like his, I think he called it, what does he call
View.
it now? Tony's View, yeah.
Yeah, subscribe to them if you don't. He's a good economist.
He's fantastic. Like I love reading his stuff. I haven't read it recently, but he wrote a really good article about that, because people were... Wasn't there a thing in Auckland where one of the newspapers, there was this idea that the Chinese were coming and buying all this property in Auckland. And so they went through and they looked at all the land purchases in Auckland and like basically looked for Chinese sounding names, and they were like, oh, this is the percentage of people that are buying that are Chinese, which is a fucking ridiculous thing to do, right? But he wrote a really good article about, it was like 10 pages long, about like looking at, I guess, the type of Chinese people that are coming to buy property in New Zealand. And like the thing that I really got out of that was like they're just people like us. You have this middle class, this growing middle class there that are scared that their money's going to get taken away from the government, and this is why there's like a flight of this capital that's going to like if you look in Vancouver and Canada and like New Zealand, they're all just trying to get their money out of there, because they make all this money, and then the government's trying to pinch it off them,
I think most of those Chinese were already living in NZ as well. It's quite interesting, that one. So the reason everyone was upset about them was because they weren't getting rented out.
Okay.
They were sitting empty, the lawns were growing big, they were just land banking them. So if you look at Len Helms, who owns Golden Homes in NZ, he's got some of the most valuable properties in Tauranga, and multiples of them: Marine Parade, Ocean Beach Road, waterfronts in Matua, and they all sit empty. He doesn't put family in them, they're all empty. And he's doing exactly the same thing. He's buying more, he's about to build 2 more now, I believe. Wow. And they sit empty. So there's Kiwis doing the same stuff, Yeah.
But
that doesn't make good news, does it?
No. It's I mean, I find that ironic, with Marine Parade, that the irony of it is like it's owned. Well, first of all, like a lot of them are batches right along the front there.
Yeah.
And it's like it would be great if you had like young families in there, but the irony is that they're just so expensive that the people that would make really good use of them don't. You know, it's like one person that lives in a house and, you know, or nobody lives in it because it's a patch, and it's just it's one of these tragedies, right?
I know one house that was bought. I love the home. They were my client. It was the client's home, and they sold it, and they built it. And I don't think I've seen anybody in it since they've sold it, and it wouldn't have been cheap at all. And I don't think I've seen it occupied once. Yeah, and summer included.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful home. Beautiful.
Yeah. There's some really nice houses along the front there. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah,
one day, guys, one day. Like and subscribe. Help us out here, guys. We want a water view when we're doing the podcast.
All in good time. Oh, excellent. So do you, any children?
Yeah, I got 2 kids. Yeah, I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 boys. My oldest is Taikanui and the youngest is Mataitawa. So, yeah.
Beautiful names.
Yeah, these 2 little poms there with these 2 little white poms with Māori names, you know, with the heart, you know, the half. So, yeah. So, you know,
so what kind of lessons are they teaching you at the moment?
Oh, mate, patience. Like, yeah. It's, I mean, like, how old are your kids? What are the ages of your kids?
Mine are 6, 3, and almost 2. And I would say patience, being present.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be that.
I do I find being present. Like, we're real big on like no phones. Well, we try really hard not to use phones in front of our kids. And patience, man. So I have these things because I lose my temper with usually my oldest boy because he's kind of got less self-control at times. And then I actually have to write down things that I need to do. So my wife will sit me aside, give me a pep talk, and then I'll sit down and the latest one I had to put up the other day was what is it? If he's having a tantrum, it's okay to do that, but I have to stop you. I can't let you break things, or I can't let you hurt your brother. And I have to I wrote one of the points, demonstrate calm and all this sort of thing, because then it's oh man, sometimes you just lose your temper. My wife, she's so much better at it than me.
They tend to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a lesson. My wife and I kind of say this thing. We remind each other as well. Be the parent you needed when you were younger. So kind of, okay, in that moment, what did I need? Or you kind of think about it there, or you start parenting like that. But it definitely takes time, effort, and you'll. Man, I find even myself, God damn it. And then you're why the hell did I act like that? What did that bring up for me? Yeah, it's cool though. Kids teach you lots.
They do. I mean, I'm lucky I get to see my kids lots. I work from home, and even I saw my parents around, but my dad, I mean, he'd leave at about 7:30 in the morning. He'd be home by 4, but he couldn't always. I went to boarding school as well, so I didn't always have my parents around for certain sport things and that. But I feel like I'm really lucky that I'm just around all the time, and I get to see. While I'm not super hands-on as much as my wife, I'm just around in the house all the time. So I'm quite lucky I get to see them lots, and pretty lucky really, more so than what I think my parents would have been able to do. And it's just what a weird world that we live in, that
you're able to go to work at home and
and it's not even like I had to take a second-rate job or anything. It's I managed to do the thing that I'd want to do if I was living in a big city, but I get to do it living in a mint part of the country, Yeah.
I think when you're saying getting frustrated with the kids though, and your aggression, I did say on one of the other podcasts, might have been last week's one if it hasn't aired yet, but because I work from home, the wife works from home as well, hence why I've got this office. Because home ended up feeling like a prison to me. Because I see the kids off from school, I work all day, they come home, they're there. I haven't seen any other adults who had that communication. now I'm cooking them dinner, and that it just feels like their eyes in your face, and it's really healthy to be able to break that and get away.
Totally.
Whether it be your training or whatever, or go and play golf in the middle of the day, or but when I'm here, I'm super motivated, and I get home and I'm actually really happy to see the kids and stuff by that stage, versus just being at home all day long.
Because you strike me as like a people person as well, and I'm assuming you get a lot of like energy from people, right?
Yeah,
so
I can't stand being alone. Yeah.
So like if you're at home, right, you just go crazy.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have the time to just even my wife will attest to this, just go walk. Even though I love people, I love my time to myself too. So just even will walk into my shed at night time. I walk around. I'm only there for a few minutes, but that's nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because you're seeing so many people each day, though. You're seeing people in 15-minute blocks. Yeah, whereas I might sit up here in my office and see people walk by, so I'll find someone to have lunch with still, because I need that connection throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Very different. I'd be much the same if I was doing the role.
Yeah.
Change the positioning.
Yes. How old are your kids?
So mine we're a blended family.
That's right.
So I'm a 12, 16 and 20-year-old.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of it, where we were actually just saying last night, because we went to a property event last night, and everyone asked us, I don't know, what are your kids? And we're in that place now where we could be at an event like that, and it's actually going well, where we just ring the kids and be like, there's pizza arriving at 6:30. If we're not home by 9, make sure you're in bed.
It's crazy. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, what's coming?
Yeah, wow.
But it's a very different. So because we got married, second time round, so I've been divorced since my second marriage. A lot of my friends at the time were all single, and then now they've all had little kids. So we don't see a lot of them, because they're on a completely, they're going to the park and on the swings and stuff. We've got all this freedom. So it's funny how you chop and change between your friends and where you're at in life all the time.
You definitely find that, like you end up hanging out with people who have kids the same age.
On the same journey.
Yeah, because it's like you're limited by...
Well, it makes it so much easier when you're going around places and the kids are occupying themselves and they're enjoying, and you can actually focus on not worrying about the kids, because you actually just, they're fine, they're comfortable, they're playing, they're enjoying each other's company, and it's just as exciting for them, and you can have a nice conversation too, so it just does make it easier. Whereas I've got another mate, he's awesome, he's wicked, he comes around, but the kids love him, so we can't have the conversation while the kids are up, because the kids just won't leave him alone. And it's a good thing to have friends that like that too, for you, but it's nice as well to... You can understand if you had another child there that was similar, it'd be much easier to just be fully present.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What sort of books do you guys listen to? Because I know you listen to lots of...
Yeah, so I'm not a reader. So if I try and read a physical book, my mind goes 1,000 places, and I start, what's happening with work, what I'm going to cook for dinner, all the rest of it. But I only read pretty much like these podcasts, your Tony Robbins, your, Think and Grow Riches. I'm currently doing Life and, Henry Ford's book, Life and Biography of, I forget what it's called. But yeah, just really business and sort of motivational type stuff, and learn from those. And that's probably shaped my life, really. One of the first books I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think a lot of people's first book was that book. Yeah. And, and I still follow him today. I think he's losing. I think he's losing his mind a little bit now in his 70s. Really? He's just very passionate about certain things that are happening in the world, like a lot of us have done over the last few years. But it's his way or the highway. But just, those kind of books. I can give you a list if you want some stuff afterwards. I can show you my Audible and see if you haven't.
I've got like a massive pile, in the UK, the books are so cheap. When I came back, I just had like a suitcase of books, because you get them second hand off Amazon there, and it's just cheap as chips. Yeah, so it's I always try to read like a book a month, but then I end up having like 2 books, and then it'll take me like 2 months. And and I'm quite bad. I take a lot of notes, and I do like book reviews and everything.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's where I like the Audible, because you can hop on a car. Yesterday I went to Huntley and back, so I basically had 4 hours of reading a book.
Yeah, nice.
Because I was just listening to it as I drove over there and back. So I smash out a few chapters and it's done. And I don't have to think about it. And otherwise I would have been listening to The Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with The Rock. but not really growing as a person by listening to them. So yeah, it's nice to have that technology. But people shouldn't be listening to books; they should be listening to Common Unity.
Exactly.
Have a laugh at the same time. I'm not a book person. The only books I do read is like I'll read Mike Tyson's books, but otherwise I'm not a book reader. But I like to take the time to sit down to read Mike Tyson's books. It does take me a long time to read it though. I don't enjoy it.
What about like audiobooks?
Audiobooks I love. So I'm huge on audiobooks and podcasts. So I've actually only just started getting into audiobooks, but I'm huge on podcasts. If you go through my list, it's thousands upon thousands of hours on listening to audiobooks. Podcasts.
After this, I'm going to get you guys to do screenshots because I usually do that. I like seeing what people's podcasts.
Well, you'll see Common Unity at the top.
Right at the top.
Obviously, we've just got the list because we listen to ourselves. No, joking. No, it's cool. But I think what we're going to do as well is kind of go back and like every 10 episodes or something and just kind of summarize the parts and the standout parts for us that kind of we really enjoyed or we took a lot from. And
pick one thing from each podcast and make an episode on the one thing that we got from each guest that was the most impactful, and sort of have a discussion around that. And that's a bit of a highlights reel too for anyone that's missed something and goes, actually, that's a cool lesson. I should go back to that one. Well, it'll be a little bit of a highlights reel.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and something to recap and keep the learnings up here.
Yeah, because that's what it's really about for us is just the growth and seeing the shifts in perspective, mentality, and it's a big part of it. So as much as we love enjoying interviewing you guys and listening and learning more about you, it's also about our own personal growth and understanding too, which is quite cool.
It's so cool that you guys are doing something like this around here because, I'm sure there's lots of people around here that have like unique perspectives and, they got different stories and different ways of viewing the world and
Well, that's the thing. Cool, most people have a Bob who's into IT that's right beside them that if you wouldn't realise that they're really interesting people. And I have so many clients. Everybody has something super interesting, and once they start talking, you're like, wow, that's
it's about
really
the questions,
cool.
right? It's about the right questions to ask, really.
Yeah. And just opening that up and having the space where they're open enough, and even I'll still learn things about my clients years down the track, and I'm like, wow, that is really cool. Yeah, really cool. It's quite funny, actually. I had a situation today. I've got this lovely old lady. She's Jan. She's absolutely lovely, and she is getting up there in age, and she's lived a lot, and she's like, she got driven today because she's having some health issues, so she's got the service called Driving Miss Daisy that drove her to her appointment today, and happened to see a guy, and I know him from down my first degree, and we had mutual friends down there. I was like, Oscar Harper. So he's got this new business called Driving Miss Daisy.
Oh, wow.
And which is pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
And then the cool thing is, I was chatting along, and he happens to know my cousin or somebody else. And I was like, what does that tell you, Jan? You know a lot of people.
It's also that New Zealand's very small, right? Because remember, they say there's 6 degrees of separation to anyone in the world, but they proved on the radio years ago there's basically 1 degree of separation in NZ. They started.
This is how they named 2 degrees. That's basically the idea that it's like 2 degrees separation New Zealand.
Yeah. Seriously?
Yeah, that's how the name comes from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bill Osborne, yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous, really. Like, I really miss that about New Zealand. Like in the UK, like here, just bump into people all the time that someone knows someone. Like even in our short, not that I know Lolo, but like the gym that I started off was City Kickboxing, right?
Yeah.
So like all those lads, and like I know who Lolo is.
Yeah, because he's iconic in New Zealand martial arts. So then
Yes. So there's like this close link to everyone.
Someone you know knows them, and that's it. 2 degrees done.
Whereas like in the UK, man, it was just like I very rarely bumped into people that I knew. I kind of miss that. I quite like the thing about here in New Zealand that, I mean, some people don't like it, but I love it, that you can just be like, oh, yeah, I know this person. Or
I personally enjoy it.
The person who normally doesn't love it is the wife who's like, can you stop talking to everyone? I'm trying to get to farmers. I've got stuff to buy.
Trying to get some milk and eggs there.
My wife's been we go out for lunch and I'm chatting to everybody, or I know this person, know that person, and she doesn't complain about it because I'm like, well, technically they're paying for this dinner.
They're close.
So when you think about it. So hey, thank you so much for taking your time to come and talk with us and share a lot of insight. So
there's an important question that Gabriel normally asks, and he's missed it though. So all your learnings through life today, what would be one piece of advice you'd give yourself, your younger self at say 18 years of age?
I remember hearing this question on one of your podcasts, and I thought about it. I actually don't know. No, actually, I did have an answer. Did I?
Well, you can think of one.
There is no wrong or right answer.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know if I'd like change anything. You know, because there's some things where I think I should have buckled down and tried harder. But then I don't
Or
think...
not necessarily anything to change. It's just any motivation or anything that you're like, you know what? You don't sweat the small stuff. It's something along that...
Yeah, I think the question comes back to, we're going to probably have like a lot of, listeners that are 18, 20, 21 years old. They're starting out life and they may be thinking about, life's scary, what's coming up, and we've all been there and we've grown,
So if you were to summarize
Actually,
something...
I do this one. I mean, I might regret saying this. I would have said to like not be so obsessed with chasing birds and trying to have sex. Honestly, like if you think about how much time that it's
exhausting, yeah.
That's exhausting. And some people would argue that like sex is a big driver for why people do things anyway. Like if you really wanted to bend over backwards mentally, you could say like people try hard so that they can get money or like climb the corporate ladder to be big and powerful so that they can get sex.
Attract the right mate.
Yeah, and it's like I wish I dumped a lot of mental hours into this sort of thing where I could have, because you hear about like the Mark Zuckerbergs or whatever that like when they were at uni, they were like creating these things, right? And using brain power. And all I was trying to do was like get drunk and score chicks. And I was just like, it's such like a waste of like youthful energy. So I think I'd say that like maybe like just try, if you're a dude or because I don't know what it's like for girls because I don't know how obsessed they are.
They get chased though, they don't have to do the chasing.
Do the chasing, right? I'd say with a guy like, get a girlfriend or something, or like
knuckle down.
And like try not to be obsessed with chasing birds or chasing sex because it's like there's so many other better things you could do with your time.
100%.
And like that's one of the great things I guess of like it's like the tyranny of choice, right? For young people these days with what do you call it, Tinder and everything, where you can just it doesn't matter, you can always just get another one, if this one doesn't work out. It's like you spend all this time doing this because I've heard people. I think like Tim Ferriss talked about this. He had a friend that had like an arranged marriage, and they were saying like you don't get it. Like this is like a lot of power in that, having all that choice taken away. Where
it works.
It just works, right? You have someone, and you can like focus your mental energy on other things. So stop chasing girls and just do some work.
Well, you got your wife.
I got my wife, 'Cause, that's the thing. I don't have to worry about chasing birds anymore. It's great.
And to be honest, my two most successful friends I have are both sub 30, and they made a rule when they were 18 that they're going to 100% focus on their business and not have girlfriends for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And hope they'll be on there. Actually, one of them's in town in start of August, so we might have them on soon.
Yeah.
Excellent.
They knuckled down. And now they can do whatever they want in their life.
Yeah.
And all the girls run to them. They don't need them, but there's a lot in that comment. I like that. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. It's been great to hear your story. Is there anything, any ways that people can find you? Do you want people to find you, or are you going to keep your security quiet and tight?
I mean,
socials or anything? Or?
I mean, I have No, I mean, like I've got a Twitter account, but I don't advertise it because I just use it for following, and
Yeah, sure.
I don't use Facebook and I don't use Instagram or anything. So
So you just got to enjoy this podcast, and if you like it, listen to it again.
yeah, pretty much really.
We'll have to get you on another day.
I mean, you could Google me, you'll be able to find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Yeah,
I
mate.
appreciate it.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
wicked. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah,
Too
man.
easy. Thank you.
Wicked. Oh man.